Watch a cat encounter a puddle. It doesn't walk around it like an obstacle. It recoils from it like a threat. Ears flatten, body drops low. Every muscle says one thing: get away from that. This is strange, because water isn't dangerous. Your cat drinks it every day. It's inside the food. It's inside the cat's own body, roughly 60% of it. And yet, something as harmless as a bath towel accidentally left damp on the floor can turn a completely relaxed animal into a coiled spring. The answer isn't really about water. It's about where cats come from. And it explains something most owners have never once thought to ask. Why does an animal that needs water to survive act like water is out to kill it? To understand this, you have to go back roughly 10,000 years, to the arid stretches of the Near East, where a small, solitary hunter moved silently between scrubland and rock. This was Felis lybica, the African wildcat, and it is the direct ancestor of every house cat alive today. Felis lybica did not live near lakes or rivers. It lived in some of the driest habitat on Earth, hunting small rodents in the Fertile Crescent's dry grasslands, getting nearly all the moisture it needed from the blood and tissue of its prey. Researchers studying wildcat physiology, including work published by evolutionary biologist Carlos Driscoll, found that this ancestor had almost no evolutionary reason to interact with standing water at all, not to drink from it in any meaningful volume, and certainly not to swim in it. Compare that to a species like the tiger, which evolved in the swampy river deltas of Asia, where water meant prey, escape routes, and relief from heat. Tigers swim by necessity. Domestic cats descend from an ancestor that never needed to. 10,000 years is a blink in evolutionary time, long enough for cats to become smaller, quieter, more tolerant of humans. Not nearly long enough to rebuild an entire relationship with water from scratch. But here's where it gets more interesting, because the aversion isn't just about ancient habitat. It's about how a cat's body actually works. And this is where the story stops being historical and becomes mechanical. A cat's coat is a precision insulation system. Beneath the visible hairs is a dense undercoat that traps a thin layer of air against the skin. And that trapped air is what keeps a cat warm, dry, and lightweight. The moment that fur gets wet, the whole system fails at once. Water displaces the air. The coat loses almost all of its insulating power. And a soaked cat can lose body heat dramatically faster than a dry one. For an animal evolved in an arid climate with no dense fat layer for backup insulation, that heat loss is a real physiological cost, not a minor inconvenience. There's a second cost that's easy to miss. Wet fur is heavy. Researchers estimate a fully soaked cat can carry several times its dry body weight in water. Weight that slows reaction time in an animal whose entire survival strategy depends on speed and precision. And a cat's whiskers and outer guard hairs, which feed it constant information about air currents and nearby movement, behave completely differently when they're matted down with water. The world briefly stops making sense through its usual channels. Put simply, a wet cat isn't just uncomfortable. For a split second, it is heavier, colder, and less able to sense danger. Evolution doesn't need a cat to consciously understand any of this. It only needs the response to be automatic, and it is. Here's the part almost nobody accounts for. If the fear were purely instinctive and hardwired, every cat on Earth would react identically. They don't. And that inconsistency is the biggest clue of all. Some cats swim voluntarily. Turkish Van cats, sometimes called the swimming cat, developed for centuries near Lake Van in eastern Turkey, where hot summers and available water made swimming an occasional practical behavior rather than a forbidden one. Maine Coons, bred in cold, wet New England climates, often tolerate water far better than average. Bengals, several generations removed from the Asian leopard cat, an ancestor with a genuine evolutionary relationship to water, frequently show curiosity rather than panic. Behavioral researchers studying feline development point to something called the socialization window, a short critical period between roughly 2 and 7 weeks of age, when kittens form their lasting associations with what is safe and what is dangerous. A kitten gently, positively exposed to water during that window can grow into an adult cat with little to no fear of it at all. A kitten with zero exposure, or one negative early experience, often carries an exaggerated aversion for life. In other words, the fear isn't purely written into the genome the way a fear of falling might be. It's a starter setting, an ancestral prior, that gets sharpened or softened almost entirely by early experience. Most house cats simply never got the experience that would have softened it. Which brings us to the explanation most people already believe, and it happens to be wrong. The common idea is that cats hate water because they're fastidious, obsessed with staying clean, and getting wet offends some deep sense of feline dignity. That explanation is backwards. Cats groom themselves obsessively, not because they're vain, but because scent is central to how they hunt and how they avoid becoming prey themselves. A cat coated in strong smells, from food, from the outdoors, from anything unfamiliar, is a cat that's easier for predators to track and worse at tracking its own prey. Getting soaked in water doesn't offend a cat's sense of cleanliness. It strips away the layer of familiar scent it depends on and leaves it, for a short window, sensorily exposed. The fastidiousness isn't the cause of the fear. Both the fastidiousness and the fear come from the exact same root, an animal whose survival strategy was built entirely around staying dry, scented, warm, and fast, in a habitat that never once required it to be anything else. Which leaves something worth sitting with. Your cat has never seen the arid grasslands its ancestors hunted in. It has never needed to escape a predator by staying light on its feet, never needed its whiskers to read a dry desert wind. And yet all of it is still in there, encoded, waiting, expressed the instant a few drops of water hit its fur. 10,000 years of living beside us changed almost everything about how a cat looks and behaves. It didn't touch the one thing evolution finished writing long before humans ever entered the picture. The Fertile Crescent never disappeared. It just moved indoors, curled up on the back of your couch, flinching at a bathtub it has never once needed to fear for its life, and reacting anyway, exactly as it was built to.